Good day everyone, I am Abrahams Carlo Bulungon reporting feminism and meaning and concept of feminism. History of feminism. While the roots of feminism are buried in ancient Greece, most recognize the movement by the three waves of feminism, the third being the movement in which we are currently residing. The first wave, 1830s, early 19th. Women fight for equal contract and property rights. Often taken for granted, women in the late 19th to early 20th century realized that they must first gain political power, including the right to vote. To bring about change was to fuel the fire. Their political agenda expanded to increase concerning sexual, reproductive, and economic matters. The second wave, 1960s, 1980s, broadening the debate. The women's movement of the 1960s and 70s, the so-called second wave of feminism, represented a seemingly abrupt break with the tranquil suburban life pictured in American popular culture. Yet the root of the new rebellion were buried in the frustration of college-educated mothers. Those discontent implement their daughters in new direction. Women's concern there on President John F. Kennedy's agenda even before this public began in 1961. He created the President's Commission on Status of Women and appointed Eleanor Roosevelt to lead it. Its report, issued in 1963, firmly supported the nuclear family and preparing women for motherhood, but it also documented a national pattern of employment discrimination, unequal pay, legal inequality, and marriage support service for working women that needed to be corrected through legislative guaranteed of equal pay for equal work, equal job opportunities, and expanded child care services. The Equal Act of 1963 offered the first guarantee, and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was amended to bar employers from discriminating on the basis of sex. Dissension and debate. Mainstream groups such as the National Organization for Women now launches the campaign for legal equity, while the hawk groups stage sit-ins and marches for only numbers of reasons, from assailing college curricula that lack female authors to promoting the use of the word "miss" as a neutral form of address, that is one that did not refer to material status. Women's studies departments were founded at colleges and universities. Protective labor laws were overturned. Employers found to have discriminated against female workers were required to compensate the back pay. Excluded from male-dominated occupations for decades, women began finding jobs as pilots, construction workers, soldiers, bankers, and bus drivers. Unlike the first wave, second wave feminists provoked extensive theoretical discussion about the origin of women's oppressions, the nature of gender, and the role of the family. Kate Millett's Sexual Politics made the bestseller list in 1970, and in it she broadened the term politics to include all. Power structured relationship. The posit that the personal was actually political. Shulamith Firestone, a founder of the New York radical feminist, published The Dialect dialectic of sex in the same year, insisting that love men who were also their oppressors. 1 year later, Germaine Creer, an Australian living in London, published The Female Eunuch, in which she argued that the sexual repression of women cuts them off from the creative energy they need to be independent and self-fulfilled. Feminism became a river of competing ideas and current anarcho-feminists who found a larger audience in Europe than in the United States, resurrected Emma Goldman and said that women could not be liberated without dismantling such institutions as the family, private property, and state power. The race factor. Like first wave feminism, the second wave was largely defined and led by educated middle-class white women who built the movement primarily around their own concerns. The campaign against employment and wage discrimination helped bridge the gap between the movement and white labor union women. But the relationships of feminists to African American women always posed greater challenges. The call by white feminists for unity and solidarity was based on their assumption that women constituted a gender-based class or caste that was unified by common oppression. Many black women had difficulty seeing white women as their feminist sister. In the eyes of many American Africans, after all, white women were as much the oppressor as white men. How relevant are the truths, the experiences, and the findings of white women to black women? As Tony K. Barbara in The Black Woman, an anthology 1970, I don't know that our priorities are the same, that our concerns and methods are the same. The globalization of feminism. By the end of the 20th century, European and American feminist movement of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, as the happened, women in the same countries were required to wear veils in public or endure forced marriage, female infanticide, window burning, or female genital cutting (FGC). In many parts of, for example, the status of woman began to erode significantly only with the arrival of European colonialism. In those regions, then the nation that patriarchy was the chief problem rather than the European imperialism seemed absurd. The conflict between women in development and developing nations played out most vividly at international conferences. After the 1980 World Conference of the United Nations Decade for Women, Equality, Development and Place in Copenhagen, women from less developed nations complained that the veil and VGC had been chosen as conference priorities without consulting the women most concerned. Third wave, 1990s present, the micropolitics of gender equality. Today, unlike the former movements, the term feminist is received less critically by the female population due to the varying feminist outlooks. There are some ego cultural feminists, the radicals, and the liberal reforms, the electoral, academic, ecofeminist, the list go on. The main issues we face today were prefaced by the work done by the previous waves of women. We are still working to vanquish the disparities in male and female pay and the reproductive rights of women. We are working to end violence against women in our nation as well as others. Difference between the second and third wave. Feminist is said to deal with the guest to attain equal rights for women and reduce gender inequalities by incorporating political, cultural, and moral issues that affect women in many ways in everyday life. The difference between the waves is significant, but the third wave and the second wave have greater difference due to the fact that one occurred at a period in history when opportunity and education levels for women were low and just starting out, while the other occurred at a period when the mode of communication in society was changing and women had new inequalities to fight against. Role of gender. The gender role is a set of behavioral norms associated particularly with males and females or females in a given social group or system, often including the divisions of labor between men and women and the attendant complex of child rearing, the socialization process leading youth toward maturing to perpetuate the same pattern. Gender-based roles coincidence with sex-based roles have been the norm in many traditional societies, with a specific component and working of the gender-sex system of the role division varying markedly from society to society. Gender role is a focus of analysis in the social science and humanities. Meaning and concept of feminism. Feminism is an interdisciplinary approach to issues of equality and equity based on gender expression, gender identity, sex, and sexuality, as understood through social theories and political activism. Historically, feminism has evolved from the critical examination of inequality between the sexes to a more nuanced focus on the social and performative constructions of gender. Meaning and concept of feminism. Feminism is an interdisciplinary approach to issues of equality and equity based on gender expression, gender identity, sex, and sexuality as understood through social theories and political activism. Historically, feminism has evolved from the critical examination of inequality between the sexes to a more nuanced focus on the social and performative constructions of gender and sexuality. Feminist theory now aims to interrogate inequalities and inequities along the intersectional line of ability, class, gender, race, sex, and sexuality. And feminists seek to affect change in areas where these intersectionalities create power and equity. Feminist political activists campaign in areas such as reproductive rights, domestic violence, fairness, said justice, and workplace issues such as family, medical leave, equal pay, and sexual harassment and discrimination. Definition. Feminism is an awareness of women's oppression and exploitation in society at the place of work and with the family and the conscious action to change this situation. Feminist is an awareness of patrician control, exploitation, and oppression of material and ideological levels of women's labor, fertility, and sexuality in the family, at the place of work, and in society in general, and conscious action by women and men to transfer the present situation. For both their definition, it is clear that all over the world, women experience discriminal, unequal treatment in terms of food, nutrition, health care, education, employment, mainstream decision-making activities. Further, it is not enough to recognize those conditions or to be aware to the accompanied by action. The action can take place anywhere. Woman may decide to educate her daughter or let her pursue a career as a mother said stand by her daughter. Basic feminist ideas. Both females and males who identify themselves as feminists disagree on many things. That being said, most feminists agree on fair basic principles. Working to increase equality, feminists through link ideas to action, insisting we should push for change toward gender equality and not just talk about it. Expanding human choice. Feminists believe that both men and women should have the freedom to develop their human interests and talents, even if those interests and talents conflict with the status quo. For example, if a woman wants to be a mechanic, she should have the right and opportunity to do so. Eliminating gender stratification. Feminists oppose laws and cultural norms that limit income, educational, and job opportunity for women. Ending sexual violence and promoting sexual freedom. Feminists feel that women should have control over their sexuality and reproduction. Why is feminism important? Feminism allows equal opportunities for both sexes. Gender rules, a set of conforming rules that say how a person should behave based on their gender, can be harmful to both men and women. The popular belief is that girls are meant to take care of the home, while boys are meant to go out and provide for the family. Can you stay at home and look after the house just because you're a girl? Or being forced to imagine not being allowed to go to school just because you're a woman. This is the reality that many girls around the world face. They are restricted simply based on their gender. It is also unfair to place pressure on boys to fulfill certain rules that are based on their gender. Femininity and feminism. Being a feminist doesn't mean you have to change you are. You can still enjoy your femininity while being a feminist. Feminism has nothing to do with how you dress or how much makeup you wear. Feminism also has nothing to do with your gender, sex. You can be a man and be a feminist too. Feminism shouldn't degrade or ignore men. It's not feminist if one gender is not noticed. As long as you believe that both men and women should be given equal opportunities, then you believe in feminism. Beyonce once said, if you're a man who believes your daughter should have the same opportunities and rights as your son, then you're a feminist. How to understand feminism? Feminism is a movement that is said to support the equality of women and actively train women to accept non-traditional values and fight traditional standards that keep women unequal. It is by definition about making the world a fairer place for women, retaining a critical perspective, and treasuring diversity. You do not need to be a woman to be feminist, and feminist does not focus on improving the world for just women alone but for society benefits a whole. Research feminism starts of basic feminist literature. Feminists are a diverse group from the accessible and personable Bill Hooks to the sharp-rated academic Judith Butler. Try checking out these basic feminist books from the library or reading feminist 101 articles. Much of feminist truth takes place at the college level. However, here are some websites written at plainer language if you are young or intellectually disabled and interested in feminism. Read from a variety of writers. You may find a writer or two whose work you hold particularly close to your heart. This is great. However, it's important to remember to step out of your comfort zone. Delve into feminist community online. Feminists are gathering in bigger numbers of the internet, where it is usually safer and they can find others who aren't afraid to speak up. Websites such as Tumblr, Everyday Feminism, Jezebels, and others often host feminist discussion. Be careful of trolls and harasses. Feminist has significant backlash, notably the MRS and prominent feminists may be targeted. Internet feminist culture has had issues to ableism, bullying, anti-Semitism. Be aware of these issues and don't be afraid to call someone out if they are doing something problematic. Learn some terminology that feminist community, like all communities, has its unique vocabulary and norms. Here are some few examples. Patriarchy, a society which men are given more power than women. Masculinity is seen superior to femininity, and rigid gender roles are enforced to the detriment of everyone. Rape culture, a culture in which rape is normalized or dismissed. Nice guy, a man who acts nice in hopes that a woman will reward him with sex and may respond with anger or violence if she does not, distinct from ordinary nice guy. Into intersectional issues, feminism is about helping all women and all people, which includes women of color, LGBTQIA women, disabled women, large women, poor women, and women who belong to religious minorities. Men and non-binary people may write articles about other access of expression. Don't feel like you need to limit yourself to any female writers. Be prepared to learn. Feminists are constantly challenging and critiquing ideas in order to move past prejudice, and must be willing to put aside one's ego and not take criticism personally. Everyone does problematic things sometimes. Listen when you are called out. Understand why that particular action was wrong. Apologize and to do better next time. Don't beat yourself up over past mistakes. Learn from them and move on. You did the best you can do at that time. Understanding what feminism is not. Disregard the stereotype you heard. Feminism is not of bra-burning masculine lesbians with short hair. Feminism encompasses all sorts of women, from feminine homemakers to business executive to disabled writers to charming lesbians. Some feminists are fat, hairy, short-haired, masculine, and gay. Feminists did publicly throw bras into trash bins during the second wave. Pot bra burning is a myth. Don't confuse feminism in general with basic white feminism. Feminism is not limited to white, middle class, and upper class working women. Homemakers, sanitation workers, minimum wage factory workers, secretaries, daycare workers, unemployed women, etc. are all welcome in feminism. Realize that feminism is not about disempowerment of men. In fact, feminists have called for support for male rape victims, the breaking down of rigid gender rules that hurt men, an end to infant pain, circumcision, and intersectional rights. Feminism does not seek to do to men that patriarchy has done to women. The only men who will hurt by feminism are the men whose livelihoods dependent on the oppression of women. If you're an ordinary man, you have some learning to do, but you'll be fine. Do not tear down other women in the name of feminism. Feminism holds that all women deserve equal rights, not just the correct types of women. It is not about women disbalance themselves from femininity to seem superior as individuals. The face I not like other girls is a key example of what feminism is not, because it implies that other girls are inferior and less worthy of respect. Women should be able to like pink, manicures, pop music, etc. if they choose. Calling other women sluts and bitches is not feminism. Insulting who are less intelligent or less educated is not feminism. Throwing mentally ill women, fat women, lesbian under the bus is not feminism. Learning that feminism is not a monolith, it has different sects that hold different beliefs. Even within sects, different feminists have different opinions. While white feminism, a sect that focuses on white women, ignoring or even speaking over women of color. Sex work includes exclusive feminism, a group that believes people who voluntarily perform sex acts for money should be respected and kept safe, and that sex work should be decriminalized. Trans-exclusionary radical feminism, a sect that believes transgender women are men who intend to invade women's safe spaces. Sex-positive, sex critical feminists who believe that female sexuality should be destigmatized and celebrated, versus those who voice concern over male-female power dynamics and relationships. Recognize that feminism is not about hating men. Studies have shown that feminists actually feel less hassle toward men than non-feminist women do. Plenty of feminists are married to men and or can name several men they are about in their lives. Feminist values such as consent also apply to men. Some feminists believe that men can be feminists, while others are concerned that male feminists will try to take over the movement. Men have male privilege. Having privilege is not equal to being evil. You may run across misandry jokes. These are humor attempts in which feminists satirically say that some horrible things about men that society says about women. Not all men is an obvious statement. The men who do it can rethink their actions and do better, and The men who don't do it can nod intelligently and keep moving. What feminists realize that feminism is more than girl power or hey, it be called to be equal to men. Feminists seek dismantle all system of oppressions that just patriarchy like their name suggests, but also systematic sexism, heterosexism, ableism, and more. Girl power ignore the idea that women can do bad things too. Equality to men is an impractical idea, which means should women be equal to white heterosexual men, black autistic men, fat transgender men, and all men are equally privileged. Observe how feminism encompasses injustice of all norms and motivations. It supports everyone from the rape victims to the woman whose bottom is pinched by a co-worker from the teenage wife to the gamer who is frustrated at seeing characters of her gender seen like object. Recognize that feminism hand that all people deserve to be treated like basic humans decently. They should not need to dress a certain way, lose a certain amount of pounds, hide signs of religions or disability, or straighten hair in order to be treated with basic respect. Basic respect means, among other things, freedom to walk around without stares of disgust or rude remark. Human rights such as effective healthcare, equal opportunity, and not fearing with their safety or life because of their gender, race, gender identity, etc. Recognize the importance of consent in feminist beliefs. Feminists believe that no one's bodily autonomy should be violated. This is very clear in their stance on sex and sexual assault, but also in a number of things in everyday life. In feminism, consent has no exemptions. Most feminists are pro-choice because of fetus is using a pregnant person's body, causing things like vomiting and serious financial expense, and it should be removed if the pregnant person no longer concerns to use of their body. Feminists usually oppose the draft and routine infant circumcision because men did not consent to the draft, nor can infant consent to unnecessary operations. Understand feminism's stance on the female body. Feminists believe that women's bodies are about more than sex and beauty. They dislike the treatment of women as a sexy object in advertising, movies, video games, and other areas. Some feminists rebel against toxic beauty culture by deliberately choosing not to follow it, not shaving, wearing little or no makeup, accepting body fats. Others prefer to dress up according to beauty norm. Some women protest the idea that the female body, especially cis women breast, is inherently sexual. They should be able to breastfeed in public without people ascribing sexual meaning to it, and go topless in the heat like men can. Recognize that feminism is intersectional. It encompasses more than sexism. It also addresses issues of race, sexual orientation, gender identity, disability, income, size, religion, and more. Modern feminism, certainly one of the most misunderstood school thought, feminism remains a dirty word to many men and women all across the globe. Another important feature of the third and the most modern wave of feminism that is address the concerns of minorities, poor and working class women in the developing world, young women and lesbian, bisexual, and transgendered women, unlike the previous wave which focuses majority on middle class American white women. Criticism of modern feminism. White many men and women fight daily to push the agenda of third wave feminism. Many, even those wholeheartedly supported the second wave, believe that the third wave to be unnecessary or even damaging to previous feminist efforts. This is perhaps due to the fact that in effect to assert their freedom, many women have taken to belong scantily clad, overly promiscuous and over sexualized, which many women and men believe to see a step in the wrong direction. Overall, modern feminism means many different things, many different people. Though there seems to still be long-standing issues that are contributing to the oppression of women, income disparities between men and women that need to be dealt with. Many also believe that it is a moment that will ultimately cause chaos in society and possibly even cause the demise of the family unit and we know it. Whatever the case may be, it does not seem that we've seen our last bra engulfed in flames. Thank you.
Beat junkie.